A couple of weeks ago, Stephen Bartlett broke the internet with this clip.
I had a year of not drinking, decided to have a drink again. It ruined 3 days of my life. I had a couple of glasses of wine, didn't get drunk. It ruined 3 days of my life.
In 2026, health optimization has gotten out of control. Greens powders, fitness trackers, heart rate variability, seed oils. Everyone thinks that when it comes to their health, it has to be this picture perfect image. And it's got me worried for myself, my clients, everyday people that are trying to lose fat and build muscle and just improve their overall health. The internet's made it so easy for people to be led down the wrong path and just lie on the couch defeated thinking health and fitness is too complicated and way too much effort. While all this is happening though, I think that health optimization is cracking, and this clip just proves that it's the start. And to be honest, I think that people are fucking sick of being told that they have to be perfect with the foods they eat, how they train, and their morning routine. But are there more of these cracks developing in the health optimization advice online? And are people becoming more and more aware of the things that don't actually matter as much as people make it out to be? Now, before we start, I appreciate I'm gonna look like a lot of the dickheads throughout this video. Young guys with no shirts on in the supermarket, some health and fitness influencer yelling at you to stop eating carbs. So why should you trust me? Well, I work with people one-on-one to lose fat, build muscle. I do it myself as well. I still enjoy sweet treats that are processed once or twice a day while still maintaining a whole food diet. But most importantly, I don't wear a wearable that doesn't really make a difference to your health. I don't have a peptide discount code in my bio, and I'm not paid to promote a fucking greens powder that does nothing. $40 million would be really nice though. All right, let's get into it now. Now, Mr. Bartlett did just talk about this, but you probably know what a Whoop is. And the rise of the fitness wearable is in full effect. Apple Watches, Garmin's, Oura Rings, Whoop bands, everyone has to track something. And I won't lie, I wore this for the longest time. I have a streak that's over 2 years long. But tell me why we need to track every single metric in our life. Tell me why neighbor Nelly down the road needs to know what her heart rate variability is. Tell me why I need to know what my physiological age is with this thing. On paper, these seem like a really good thing to help improve your health, but in practice, for 90% of people, it just brings paralysis by analysis. And people are basing their actions on something that isn't even fully accurate. Studies have shown that the sleep data is only about 60% accurate for what it's measuring. If you're working a 9 to 5, you don't need to know what gives you an extra 1% boost to your recovery score. Thanks Whoop for telling me if I get a good night's sleep, I have energy for the day. It's just impractical having something that gives you a numerical value for how you feel. Seeing that a device on your wrist has told you that you're in a red recovery and that you should take a rest for the day, how does that affect you for the rest of the day? What if you woke up feeling like a fucking superhero until you saw that red score? What if it's the complete opposite and you had an absolute dog shit night of sleep and it comes up with a green recovery? So many people letting their physical and mental well-being be decided by something they're wearing on their wrist that in the evidence can be up to 90% wrong. They can be 10 to 15% wrong and overestimate how much sleep you got. They can be 30 to 90% wrong with how many calories you've burned. They can say you do more steps than you actually do. Even though some of these are small numbers, when you add them all together, it's a big difference to what's actually happening in your body. Now, yes, it is important to highlight the things that could negatively impact your sleep. And like Stephen's saying that alcohol ruined his sleep, there's countless cases of people that now understand how things like alcohol can affect them. That is a good thing. However, if you want one to improve your health, realistically, you only need it for 1 to 2 months max. That way you can understand the things that actually make a difference to your recovery and your health. But by having things to track, it makes us think that there is something we can take. The perfect pill, the perfect powder to improve our sleep, instead of just doing the obvious thing and putting our phone down so we can go to bed an hour earlier. And by having something that measures everything, it pulls us away from the things that we can't track. I can measure the effects that getting an hour less of sleep a night has on my body, but I was out with friends that night and this fucking thing cannot track the amount of stress that left my body because I was hanging out with people that I like. And we know that one of the most important things when it comes to your health and longevity is not being alone. Tell me how this fucking band measures how lonely I actually feel. Heart rates, sleep periods, recovery scores. People are getting tired of tracking all of these things.
I see so many people who aren't in great shape using things like Whoop. And then I ask them, what's your training program look like? And they go, oh, well, I do a couple of classes a week. I go on and run a couple of times a week. I play tennis. And then, I'll go to the pub Friday, Saturday.
And yet they can tell you their sleep score.
And then they can tell me their sleep score. And then the next morning, I'll be in the sauna and I'll start chatting and they tell me their sleep score and they'll decide that that day they're not training because their sleep score's rubbish. It's absurd.
But all of these are getting highlighted by one man. And since the start of 2020, we have seen one of the biggest rises in the health optimization space. Brian Johnson. And I'm not hating on him, but it's people like this that have opened up a world of extreme health that's now seen in young people across the whole internet. Because of the internet, information has never been easier to get, which is good. More information to improve your diet, make your training better. It's good because it lowers the barrier for people to make positive changes when it comes to their health. But the problem here is, because of the internet, information has never been easy to access, which is bad. The human brain only works in extreme, and the things that get the most attention now show this. The worst diets versus the best diets. The worst foods you should never eat, the best foods you should only eat. Because of health optimization and information being so available to people, we have created the extreme mindset of being perfect. And I think we're seeing the rise of the next eating disorder because of it, orthorexia. It starts off as just trying to improve your diet, but then you spiral down into never eating seed oils because they're inflammatory, not eating fruit because they have anti-nutrients in them, avoiding vegetables because they've been sprayed with pesticides. No fruit and vegetables? Really? Things like this have created health anxiety around the foods that we eat. And you've got dickheads walking around the supermarket with no shirts on, getting a lot of traction, holding up these foods and saying that they're bad. Here's the thing though, everyone has demonized ultra-processed foods and that they are the only reason we experience health problems in the modern age. And yes, while these are bad for us and we should limit our intake of them, there is some research that shows that the negative effects aren't as bad as people make them out to be. And we aren't completely sure whether it's processing or other aspects of ultra-processed food. This study shows at the high end of ultra-processed food intake, it only increased your risk of things like respiratory diseases by 10%. So while there still is an issue with eating large amounts of these because of the ingredients and how they're made, I think the main problem is that people are missing the forest for the trees, which is that ultra-processed foods are easy to overeat on, which makes them easy to overeat, which makes it easier to gain excess body fat, which is probably where a lot of the negative health effects come from. It isn't solely just the additives and preservatives in these foods. It's an overconsumption problem because we have countless studies showing the negative effect of having too much body fat and obesity. And while there are studies showing that additives are bad for you, it's usually in significant quantities that are not feasible for any human to eat. Take this reel, for example.
This used to be my go-to for breakfast. Now I think it's one of the worst things you could ever eat for breakfast. Saponins, phytic acid, heavy metals, pesticides, glyphosate.
Glyphosate is a pesticide, but do you know how many oats you would have to eat to reach an unsafe amount of it? 160 kilos a day. Sure, it's the glyphosate that's going to kill me and not consuming over twice my body weight of food. Again, I'm not saying that you can just walk around now and eat all the ultra-processed food that you want. I'm just saying, I think the main problem comes from them being super easy to eat, which makes it super easy to overeat on them, which means you're eating more calories and gaining more fat. Side note, if you are trying to lose fat, there's a list of 30 simple lessons that you can use to make your fat loss easier. And so to see the biggest benefit from the foods that we eat, I think us as a society, as a whole, should be focused mainly on consuming a diet primarily made up of whole foods with some sweet treats sprinkled in that keeps us at a healthy body weight and not over consuming calories. We're developing health anxiety over specific ingredients instead of just looking at the bigger picture and realizing it's an overconsumption problem and people are just eating too many calories. You know, the common sense thing, but you're not allowed to have that on the internet. So moving on to... Now, I have just complained how too much information and the internet has made diet culture worse for the last 4 minutes, but it did highlight important parts of our diet that we needed to look at, especially protein. The foods we eat are broken down into 3 main nutrients: protein, carbs, and fats. And while carbs and fats have had their own time to shine, protein is now in the spotlight. You need it for muscle growth. It can help you to lose fat because it can make you feel less hungry and more full. And it's especially important for older people to make sure that they don't lose muscle as they age. But we couldn't have ended it there. No. We had to take it to the extreme level. We had to split down 2 paths, both equally shit. We have people and influencers sharing high protein everything, high protein brownies, high protein cake, high protein insert X meal here. 5 meals a day, each one with 50 grams of protein. And so they're taking calories away from the other important nutrients, carbs and fats, because too many of their calories are coming from over consuming protein. But then they also have health anxiety and can't have a meal without protein in it. Then we have the other side. Supermarkets filled to the brim with protein products. Protein pasta, protein bread, protein water, protein condoms. That last one's not a real thing. yet. We do have a protein crisis and people aren't eating enough. And if we wanted to improve everyone's overall health, we would want them to be eating a minimum of 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilo of body weight a day. This has been shown across multiple studies. Improved weight loss, improved muscle mass, improved quality of life as you age, but the recommended daily intake only has us eating 0.8 grams per kilo of body weight a day. And people are only eating around 90 grams, when in reality, if we followed the science, we should be eating closer to 130. We shouldn't be getting it from these kinds of food though. Yes, like I said before, processed foods aren't bad if you control your total calorie intake. But the problem is with these foods, they're usually made up of plant proteins, which your body doesn't absorb as much when you compare it to an animal source. It's usually not an issue if you hit your daily protein intake, but a lot of people aren't doing that. And so the little protein that they are eating, their body isn't using as much as it could be. So on one side, we have people eating way too much protein, but on the other side, we have people not eating enough and not from the right sources. We want people to at least hit this range every day. And if you're trying to build fat and lose muscle, you should be pushing it maybe even a little higher to 2.2 to 2.5 grams per kilo of body weight. And we should try to get it from animal sources most of the time, unless you're vegan or vegetarian for some reason. That way, person A isn't eating too much protein and they can train and perform better because they're eating enough carbs and fats. And then we have people on the other side that are getting healthier because they're eating more protein from the right sources. No, you do not need to be eating 50 grams of protein per meal. No, you shouldn't be needing protein pasta to hit your protein intake, because any changes to your diet should be focused on including whole foods first. And I think this is another thing in health optimization that's cracking. People are fucking sick of seeing protein products everywhere, and there's more and more people calling it out.
In every single grocery store across America, we have protein chips, protein bars, protein candies, protein gummies, whatever it is, and we're being lied to about what high protein is. And this is a big reason why Americans are in such a bad health situation.
It's good because it's taking our focus back to what actually matters. Eating whole foods. But you've clicked on this video because you know what health optimization is, and you're sick of being told that you have to take everything under the sun, which opens up the question, should you be taking supplements? Because I know you're a smart cookie and that you pay attention to your health, I know you listen to podcasts. And, well,
most people don't realize how much being dehydrated impacts their performance, which is why for the last 5 years, I've started pretty much every morning with Element.
I'd like to take a quick break and acknowledge our sponsor, AG1.
What is the definition of a supplement? Something added to something else to enhance it, make up for a deficiency, or complete a whole. A supplement should always be used to supplement your diet, not replace things fully. We listen to these podcasts for self-development and tools to better improve the quality of our lives, physically and mentally, but they're over-optimizing for things we don't need. We don't need a greens powder to replace our fruit and vegetable intake, because the benefits from fruit and vegetable comes from eating them. And you cannot tell me that you can force all of those benefits from 2 or 3 servings of fruit a day and 5 servings of vegetable into this much fucking powder. We don't need an electrolyte blend stacked with sodium, because the average person already consumes too much sodium from their diet. So adding more isn't contributing to anything. And even if you wanted to take it, you would literally get 99% of the same results if you just put salt into water. The only thing that quite literally 99% of the population need to do is focus on their diet being primarily full of whole foods. But this is another thing in health optimization that I think is cracking, because people are calling this shit out.
I think it's good to take creatine 16.
I wouldn't recommend taking creatine at 16 because you already have so much potential. I wouldn't even recommend creatine to a beginner adult. I would recommend creatine to someone who's been training consistently for a while. If you start to plateau, then I would say take creatine.
There's another scam on the horizon we need to talk about. Now, I feel pretty stupid admitting this. I succumbed to this. I was brainwashed for years for taking a supplement that not only I didn't need, I was already getting too much of it. Salt, or as the fancy name is, electrolytes. Now, just before you get your backs up and you scream, the average person already consumes too much salt. You're supplementing something you're already having too much of.
And it's great to see. People focus too much on supplementing and whether they should be taking creatine or not when their diet and their training isn't even good. Yeah, it's sexy to watch motivational reels of people taking their pre-workout and their creatine and everything before they go and train for 3 hours. But if you can't even stick to your diet, there's no point taking any supplements to fix it when you could just improve your diet. But let's go back to this reel for a second because it leads me to my next point. The over-optimization of training. Training and physical exercise has taken a new level when it comes to health optimization. There's person A who does these wild fucking exercises in the gym because they're hyper-focused on muscle tension and the mind-muscle connection, making sure they do the perfect number of sets for an exercise, the perfect exercise for each muscle group that Jeff Nippard told them to do, and that they're eating to the exact gram for their food intake. On the other side, we have person B, the person who's training in the gym 5 times a week, doing 4 runs a week, making sure to post every single one of them on Strava. You can tell I'm really sick of seeing that as well. Now, I'm not shaming anyone for doing that. I don't really care, and as long as you like your training, you keep doing it because really, the best thing for you is that you're just consistently exercising. However, it's gotten to the point where it's getting out of control that I have to see every single influencer at the Gold Coast posting their 10 a.m. run and their gym session that they've already done with coffee in hand. We are over-opting exercise, which makes it seem like this monumental task to someone just starting out. And we're raising the bar for entry, which makes new people less likely to start. In reality, exercise is a bit like a diminishing returns graph. The more you do, the less effective it is. I'm approaching this from muscle growth in the gym because that's my specialty. But the amount of progress you see when training flattens out to the point where you have to spend so much more time to see 1% progress. And that's what you see everywhere online now. People chasing marginal gains that isn't worth the amount of time they spend to get them, which is 10,000% fair if you are a competitive athlete. But for Joe Schmo on the Gold Coast with 10,000 followers, it's a bit much, which again is fine. More power to him if he's training how he likes to. The reality is, for the vast majority of people, you only need to go to the gym 3 times a week for 45 minutes each day to see 80 to 90% of the same progress. There's a free training program in the description that does this, by the way. As long as you train close to failure, think 1 to 2 reps before you can't lift the weight anymore, and a muscle group twice a week, you're gonna see progress. And what's that? This is made specifically so you can do all that in 3 days? Link in the description. The problem is we're trying to optimize your training to get maximal gains. You get to a point where you hit a time barrier and it's not worth the amount of time you would spend in the gym for the tiny amount of progress. That is the biggest problem with health optimization. It's easy to track progress you made on a piece of paper or how much extra volume you did that week, but you can't see the extra 4 hours that was spent in the gym trying to do that. But there's people coming around to it, spreading the message you don't have to spend hours in the gym. That's the thing with optimization. It's hard to track the subconscious things that are happening, which leads me to the poster boy of health optimization, recovery. What do you think of when someone says they're going to improve their health? Yeah, eat healthier. Yeah, maybe go to the gym a couple times a week. But I'm putting top dollar on a lot of people saying sauna and ice bath. People think that these give massive benefits to your health, but even the evidence shows that it's a minuscule improvement. In fact, things like ice bath can actually reduce your muscle growth, which probably isn't good for health optimization, right? Ice baths are good for reducing inflammation in your body. Except when you exercise and work out, this drives your inflammation up so that your body can send protein and nutrients to your muscles so that they can recover, repair, and grow. So if you're getting in an ice bath right after training, you're reducing total inflammation and it negatively impacts progress. But this goes back to what we were talking about with training. Time is precious, so we want people to be spending their time doing the most important things. What do you think's more important? Making sure that you're getting in the sauna and the ice bath, or making sure that you're getting to the gym 2 or 3 times a week, getting your meal prep done, and trying to get 7 to 9 hours sleep? If people are cutting those things short because they think they have to get in the sauna, or they have to go to their ice bath or do their red light therapy, we're stepping over $100 bills to pick up pennies. But we've built the culture of wellness and health optimization around these things because they look sexy and like they make a difference. Because, I don't know, what looks better? Sweating your ass off in a red light sauna so you can post it on your story, or slaving away behind the scenes getting your meal prep done? Personally, I would just say the benefit from going outside, yes, there is a massive social component to these, and it's probably that you're just hanging out with friends and relaxing somewhere, which is probably where you're getting 90% of the results from. If I could sum up this whole video into one thing, I want you to imagine a cake. You can make the icing on the cake look perfect, but if the cake underneath is shit, the only thing people will remember is the cake being shit. The icing on the cake is pretty much everything to do with health optimization. Yeah, ice baths, saunas, fitness trackers, they can help to improve your health, but the biggest movers when it comes to health optimization are the most basic things. Having a diet that consists of whole foods 80 to 90% of the time. Eating at a calorie maintenance level or in a calorie deficit to get you to a healthy body weight. Doing some form of physical exercise and resistance training 3 to 5 times a week. Making sure you're doing 7 to 10,000 steps a day. Getting 7 to 9 hours sleep a night. Those 4 things are the cake. And if you literally only did those 4 things, you would get 80 to 90% of the results. And I think more and more people are coming around to this, and that slowly health optimization is dying a cruel death. That's all I gotta say though about health optimization. YouTube recommends that if you want to keep learning about your health and fitness, then you should watch this video. Otherwise, bye-bye.